And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I am Michael DeLon. Today I am talking with Sally A. Curtis. Sally, first of all, thank you for spending some time with me.
I am absolutely thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are welcome. Sally is she's the founder of a company called Monetize Your Content. She's a podcast host, and she's really best known for being able to turn books into 2+ years worth of dynamic social media post and content. And that's one reason we wanted to have her on here because well, we do a lot of books for people, and there are a lot of entrepreneurs who have books, but they just don't know how to use them, how to repurpose that content, and that's what we're going to talk about today: is how do you do that purposefully? So as we dive into that conversation, Sally, tell me, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
I love this question. Now, I'd really like to say that it was because I was very clever and strategic.
Okay.
But the truth actually is that it was completely and totally serendipitous. And I
Mm,
say it that way because it was made up of two, oh, for God's sake, stories. Another one which was could this be a thing, and then the blinding obvious moment at the end of all of that. So it's been a roller coaster ride. So let me just give you a little bit more
sure.
insight into that. Yeah. So if we rewind about 20 years, I was the bums on seats girl. I used to help experts that used to fill their rooms with 500 to 1,000 people every month, or when they were doing a speaking tour. I was their bums on seats girl. So would help them fill the room with joint venture partners and networking, etc. Um, I then found myself at the front of the room. So, of course, I then started doing that for myself, not quite in the thousands, but at the 50 to 100 people in a room. And I had just learned and observed what they were doing. So I was just doing it for myself. So in reality, sales and growth has always been my thing, whether that was employment or self-employment. Got a cheeky, naughty, adventurous spirit. So, of course, my business has evolved as I have. And I've always had the ability to serendipitously adapt. So adaptation's been my
Hmm.
thing. So you'll hear this as we go through and I share some of my insights. So the first defining moment for me was one of my mentors saying to me, "Oh, for God's sake, Sally, you've got enough content for 6 books." And that was back in the day when I didn't feel I had a voice, and I certainly didn't think that I had any IP. But when you've got great people around you, as you know, Michael, magic can happen. So we
Yeah.
actually did turn a 45-minute presentation and the training manual that went with that into a book. So I did become an author. Um,
Excellent.
just like that, I was an author. And then just like that, I did nothing with it,
That's
which
right.
is also a little bit familiar. Then came the second for God's sakes moment, which was my turn to say it to my speaker and coaching buddies who I was seeing getting stuck on a content hamster wheel, content creation
Right.
hamster wheel, fatigued, frustrated, just wanting to be at the front of the room. And I said, for God's sakes, give me your book. And I went through it and started turning it into bite-sized content for them and giving them a library of reusable assets. It was at this point I was sort of thinking, could this be a thing? Could this be a thing? And then a completely cold client was referred to me who had just written a book, had 3 hours worth of interviews as it related to the book. And we turned those two elements into 375 assets for him. And he went, woohoo, that's 2 years worth of content and strategy. And I went, oh, that made my ears prick up. And then I realized it could be a thing. And then I'd like to say many years ago, but recently, within the last 5 years, I was chatting to a business coach friend. And I have always, up until that point, been known as the content repurposing whiz. Cute, but confusing.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about, names and all the rest of it. And he said, but don't you just help people monetize their content? Boom,
Oh,
that was the blinding obvious. And it was like somebody else, fresh eyes. Like I talk about, we've got fresh eyes, we can help people out. His fresh eyes uncovered the truth that was right in front of me. Another beautiful serendipitous moment. So I'm just a collector of serendipitous moments, and I've learnt and observed off others, in effect.
I love it. I love it. What a great story, because so many times that's how our businesses begin, really, is we fall into them. People look up and go, yeah, I'd like to have that. Could I do that? And what seems banal at some times is not that at all. We're actually providing a tremendous service to people who have something to say. They've said it many times now in a book, but how do they say it to the world on a regular basis without it taking a ton of time? And
Mm,
so let's talk about unpack a little bit your process. How who who do you work for? Right, is entrepreneurs and things or whatever. Talk about that, but then talk about the process. What is it that you do with their book?
yeah. So yes, we work with predominantly speakers, authors, coaches, and consultants. Somebody that has written their expert book, and they've generally got a structure or a formula. So we work best with those, and we bring that their written words to life in the form of graphic visuals. That can be static tiles or static videos. So we embody the strategies of Nike and Apple. So we have great imagery. We work with emotive imagery, and we turn the written text into a library of these graphic visuals that people can use. Just to help get their word out. We call it bite size because it's easy to consume, which helps them be inevitable to buy. As far as the process, was that your next question, Michael?
Yeah, yeah. How does somebody work with? So I've published a book. I'm a speaker, let's say, or a consultant. Let's do a consultant. Work with business consultants. And I've created this book. It's on my web. It's on Amazon. It's on my website. What else can I do with it? What else should I do with it? I come to Sally. What happens?
Okay. Well, usually when someone comes to me with they've got their book in their hot little hand, I will do you realize you can turn that into 2 years worth of content? I usually get their eyes roll back in their head, and I can see the fear on their face that says, you're going to make me read that book and go through it. That's the first thing.
Right.
So we reassure them, because a book can be hard work, and people have sort of grown past it, so they want to just leave it to the side. So that's where somebody with fresh eyes like what we do can really help with that. So we sit down with them and work with them to find out what they're selling into for the next quarter or the 12 months. So what their business goals are, who their ideal clients are, etc. So we really do a deep dive into what the book's purpose is, who it serves, the transformations that they create, the pain points, etc. Because all of those things are the visual elements that we will craft into what we're creating. So we go through a strategy session. Somebody passes over their book to me, and they go, oh, I'm going to run away now. And they do, and they run away. And then we go through crafting the structured templates. We find the visual emotive imagery that we're going to use. Going back to the process, you had the gentleman on that talked about CEO selling recently, and he talked about the Ford and the Ford as a motor company. So we've actually adopted the Ford philosophy of having a production line. So we've got geniuses all doing their thing. So we've got somebody that creates the brand templates based on the client's brand. We've got somebody that'll find the emotive images based on their avatars, etc. And then we go through that process. So we've worked with the client. We know their goals, etc. We've gone through and crafted the templates and built the systems out for them. We've designed and created the content. We've done the reviews and the check-in with clients, and then we're able to just provide them with their library of reusable assets and their game plan as to what they can do with that content over the next 12 months or 2 years.
That's
So very
awesome. So
simple.
yeah, so which is really cool, because then the client then has the library of content that is, and the key word there that I want to hit on and get people to hear once again is reusable.
Yes.
Because a piece of content that I use today can be reused in a month, 2 months, 6 months, over and over again in varieties of ways. Talk a little bit about that reusability process, and the library aspect, that you have something to go to, pull from, reuse. Talk about that, because I think a lot of business owners don't get that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reusable part is if we know from a book's perspective, and this is one of the tips, on the front of the cover is a keyword, and I'll just use the word leadership, for example. So that gives me the overarching big word or theme of what is all about the book. And then if you look at the chapters from a structure, there'll be key insights or there'll be a structure. So we look at that big word philosophy and the topic structure to formulate our visual campaigns. So we're creating content that is leading and is part of the customer journey, what somebody is actually selling into. So that's why it's reusable and evergreen, because predominantly experts and coaches are selling similar services either month in and month out, or quarter in and quarter out. So we create a range of visual campaigns based on their bigger overarching theme and their key topics that help lead people on that journey. And I know we talked about this when we were off camera, the consistency piece. So the content that we create, why it's a library and why it is reusable, is
Mm-hmm.
because fill the bottom. So you might have your promotional campaigns with as the overarching activity, but we are the consistency piece that keeps people coming back for more. You're easy to consume. Your content's easy to consume, even on your client's worst day. They will drop in, consume something, have an insight, and have forward movement without you. So we create
Yeah.
that easy to consume content.
Yeah, that's great. And I want to just re-emphasize. So my background is in Christian radio sales, all right? So selling, advertising, and frequency was the
Yeah.
key, because people forget fast. And with all the things that are coming at us, taking a piece of content out of that content library and reusing it multiple times, your audience is not getting tired of it. Most of the
No.
time, they haven't even registered that they've seen it after they've seen it 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 times. So I think business owners go, well, I used that 3 months ago. They'll think I'm right. Do you ever get that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a radio background too, so I totally get the
Yeah.
frequency side of things. I think that even if you look at the research of how many times we need to hear something to actually hear it for the first time, it's exactly the same as seeing it. And our emotions are different every day. So what we emotively connect to today is different to tomorrow. So it is that consistency piece that learning on the run is so important. And I absolutely believe you can do it at least every other month,
Oh yeah,
if not more. This,
absolutely. And the beauty is when you do it, when you have your library and it's organized, like you said, leadership or a process or a program, and you bring it back over and over, what happens is you start to become known for that. And that's the difference, right?
correct. Yeah, absolutely. With that repetition, as you said, you become known for something. There's nothing worse, and I remember this 15 years ago when people would introduce me and edify me and say, oh, Sally's really great at this. Um, but they would say Sally's really great and she's really lovely, but they couldn't explain what I did. And I would be asked, oh, what are you doing now? That's
Yeah.
they're the examples of no one can describe you, and you're not known for something, so you blend in. If people can't describe and know what you do, it makes it very, very difficult to grow your business and for
It
people to refer
does.
to you.
Well, it does. And one of my marketing philosophies is that people buy who you are more than what you do. And when you're known, when you are a known commodity, when you are Sally A. Curtis, and I know who you are and what you do and in the DNA of your pro, it makes me lean in so that we can learn more and do business. You can nurture and all that. So let's talk about this library of content. You deliver that to the client, you give them some kind of a plan of execution. Do you also can you also do it for them if they want, or do you just deliver and say, here's what you need to be doing, here's how you execute it? How does that work for busy entrepreneurs?
Yep. So either and or both. So most of our clients have generally got their own virtual assistant or somebody that helps them
Mm-hmm.
within the business, which is why we most often will hand over a game plan
Yep.
and speak with their virtual assistant based on the strategy of where that fits in with what they're doing with their marketing agency or their
Good.
promotion side of things. If somebody's on that, you know, those early stages and they just need help understanding how to schedule it, then we will do that for them. Because my favorite Sally Nag is about getting them to build the relationships and converse with those people online. So I'd
Yeah.
rather do scheduling so it allows them to build those relationships, because there's no point having content for the sake of content if you're not having conversations and connecting
Right.
with people. You can't have conversions. So
That's right.
enables me to have my Sally Nag in there if I'm helping them out in that
Yeah.
manner.
Well, but it's so important because so many people think that, I just watched the other day with my wife the old movie, Field of Dreams,
Oh
where the guy
yeah.
builds the baseball field and cornfield, right? And it's like, if you build it, they will come. And in marketing, people think if I put it out there, they will come. Well, you need to have that next step of, yeah, they need to know who you are, but having those conversations, building the relationship, getting people comfortable with you, and not going after the sale immediately, but to say, here's who I am. Look at my library of content, right? See who I am, and if there's a fit, let's have a conversation. And we might be right, we might not be right, and if we're not, I've got somebody else who I can refer you to, right? It's about building those relationships of trust. Fair?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And through those trusts, you do create the more opportunities for yourself and
Yes.
others. I love that you said, if you can't help them out or I can't help them out, there's somebody else that we can refer them to because we've got those trusted
Absolutely.
mentors, etc. And that's the magic of connection and conversation. You don't discover that unless you have a conversation with somebody
Well,
and
it,
connect.
it really isn't. In fact, that's why you are here today, is because you met my dear friend Tom Ruich, and you were on Tom's podcast and had such a great time. Tom emailed me and said, "Hey, Michael, here's Sally. You two need to talk because she'd be a great guest on your podcast." And that was a connection, right?
Mm,
And who knows how many connections we'll have out of this podcast, because that's how business is done. Really, it's relationship, it's trust, and it's, this is who I am, this is what I provide. It's not right for everybody, but if it's right for you, we should have that conversation, because I can help you in a certain way. And I think the value you're bringing to the table is huge, because it allows somebody, we help somebody take the content that's in their brain and get it into a book. You help take everything that's in that book and create a library of reusable content that's good. And you say for 2 years. I'm going to put an asterisk next to that and say it might be 22 years, because I wrote my first book back in 2013 on marketing. I still use this book in my content marketing and concepts from that. So don't stop by saying, I'm talking to my audience now, by saying, well, there's 2 years of content. What do I do after that? You reuse it, and you reuse it, and you reuse it, because if you're an estate planning attorney or a consultant, you're probably not going to change what you do. And all of this entire library that Sally and her team can create for you is going to be there as long as you own your business. Is that a good summary? Can I say that?
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the important thing. There's the opportunity to reuse the content, but you can also tweak the content. So if you go from leadership to communication being more of the big overarching keyword, then the book, you just go back through the book with a different set of eyes, looking and
Right.
hunting different types of words.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities. It just depends on what we're focusing on. And we talk about when we're working with clients and I'm speaking and stuff, to look beyond the words. So you're never
Mm.
actually reading the book, you're actually just looking beyond the words, because if you look beyond the words, you actually see the structure and things will jump off the page at you.
Yeah. Okay. Before we wind up, one more question. When somebody comes to you, an entrepreneur, a consultant, somebody, a coach, a speaker, they have a book. What's the time frame if they say, okay, we want to work with you, we want to create our own library of material? Is that a 1 month thing, a 6 month thing, a 2 year? How long does it take you to kind of walk through a standard book and to create all of these visual images and slides and all, so that you can actually start delivering to that client something that they can start using? What's that even look like?
In a typical case, it's 6 to 8 weeks. So that's
Oh, wow.
a time frame. So we can turn things around very, very quickly. The only caveat to that is how busy our expert is for when we're needing to check in with them and then sort of do those sorts of things. So if someone's got the time and is quick to do that, check in with us, then it is a 6 to 8 week turnaround time. And that's the beauty of having that production line agency with experts
Love
that
it.
are genius in those bits. You can actually create a lot of speed, and that is very advantageous for a lot of our clients.
That's awesome. And so that's speed because I mean, money's time. Time is money, right? We've got to get these things out. And you think about 6 to 8 weeks, that's 2 months. How much content could you, the entrepreneur, create in 2 months using your book? Because you're so distracted doing other things. You might put a few out there, but usually what happens is you go and you stop because you get distracted. Whereas Sally, in about 2 months, 6 to 8 weeks, is going to have a library. She's going to create your own library, and then so the idea that came to me is when you go from leadership to communication or something, you just create a branch library, right? Your first library doesn't go away. You create a branch library with a different type, right? And you can do that the rest of your career. But you need to build your first library, and Sally A. Curtis is going to help you do that. So I'm super excited about what you do, Sally. How do people, how do authors out there create or take that next step? Where do they find you? What's the best next step for somebody who's intrigued by creating their own library of content that you can help them monetize?
Yeah, absolutely. Best place absolutely is always LinkedIn for me. That's the place I like to play the most. So you can, and that's why we've mentioned Sally A. Curtis. So if you look for Sally A. Curtis on LinkedIn, you will find me there. I am absolutely always up to have a quick cuppa and a conversation with somebody to assist them and talk through what they may need to talk through with us.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to make sure that is in the show notes. And Sally A. Curtis on LinkedIn is where you're going to find her, and connect with her, have a conversation with her, and see how she can help you get more clients through monetizing your content and creating your own library of reusable content. I think it's a brilliant idea, Sally. Thank you for being my guest, and thanks for helping entrepreneurs take their content out to the world.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.